What's up, Superdads and other denizens of YouTube who might be watching this? So, I'm going to talk today a little bit about how to come back to exercise when you've been off for some reason, let's say injury or illness. I'm just getting over being sick, which is why my voice is a little bit weirder, a little bit weirder, a little bit weird. So, how do we come back from a sort of period of being off where you really haven't been able to exercise at all? Well, here's a good thing. Here's the good news. This is not a bad thing at all necessarily. I mean, depending on how long you've been off, right? If you've had an injury that's kept you out of exercise for 6 months, you're going to have lost some progress that you made. You've lost some muscle mass, and you're going to have to make up for that. But if it's a shorter thing, like an illness, well, you're going to not really have lost anything, assuming it was like 2 weeks or less. You start losing muscle mass generally after about 2 weeks of not exercising. And even then, it's relatively slow loss. Your muscle mass is such an expensive, resource-intense form of tissue to make that your body doesn't want to give it up easily. Basically, like, you build a beautiful Gothic cathedral and then just decide to knock it down the next day. It doesn't make any sense, right? So you don't lose it very quickly, so you don't have to worry if it's just a short illness. And even if it is something longer, it comes back very quick. This is something called muscle memory. So even if you've been on for an extended period of time, the muscle will come back much faster than it originally took to put it on. So that's good news. Now, how to come back. So let's say you're looking at your first exercise session after a period of being off. What should it look like? Well, first thing, you're going to reduce the exercise number. So the number of exercises that you select. So if, let's say, previously you were doing 8 exercises, something like that in a full body session, reduce it down. Like, for example, my training session today is basically going to be 1 push, 1 pull, and 1 legs exercise. So just 3, because I haven't done any exercise really in at least a week. Okay, so just 3, real simple. Okay. As for the weight, you're also going to reduce that if it's possible. Now, I'm probably going to be doing mostly body weight stuff here, like push up, pull up, squat, something like that. So I can't really reduce the weight so much. But if you're going back and jumping on machines or jumping back into bench press or something like that, you are going to want to reduce the weight. And it's probably better to go a little bit lower than even you think you would have to go. So, even down to 70%, 60% of where you were. And I'll explain why in a second. You're also not going to do any extra sets. Why is this important? Well, if you're training according to high intensity training principles, as they go by, the name they go by, and the things that I'm kind of going to advocate for on this channel being the best approach for most really busy, stressed out people, then you're basically training to failure on every set that you do. And because you're coming back and your body's not used to it and you're a little bit weaker, you're probably going to reach failure much faster than you normally do. Okay. Now, on another day, or let's say you're doing an exercise for the first time or something like that, and you reach failure super quick, it might make sense to do another set in order to make sure that you really get that muscular stimulus in there, right? But in this case, we are definitely not going to do that. Okay, I am going to do 1 set to failure, slow and controlled, and then I'm just gonna leave it and assume that was enough, because your body is super sensitized to exercise if you've been off for a little bit. Even as much as just taking a week off can be a good resensitizing stimulus, or lack of stimulus. Now, there's a difference between resensitizing and deloads. People who do things like powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, these sorts of things, they talk about deloads. Even bodybuilding talk about deloads regularly. And it's not the same thing. A deload week is where you reduce the number of sets or the amount of weight that you're doing, or potentially both, in order to give your body a chance to sort of recover from joint pain. It's not, you're not progressing in terms of your strength, these sorts of things. And if you're, following high intensity principles, you would probably be inclined to just think that you were just overtraining, you were just overdoing it, and that's why you weren't progressing or your joints were hurting or things like that. If you're not training all that frequently, you're not doing too many sets, then you shouldn't be ending up with joint pain. Your joints should be feeling better and stronger as a result of exercise, not more beat up. But this does happen to a lot of people, and so they take these deload weeks as a chance to sort of recover, but not lose the skill of doing whatever exercises they were doing. They don't want to lose the skill of squatting, because it is absolutely a very fine skill that needs to be practiced in order to be maintained and improved. But for high intensity training, practitioners, this shouldn't be necessary, these deload weeks. However, it does make sense with somewhat regularly to take a resensitization period where you just sort of lay off of it for a little bit, a week or so, and let your body just kind of forget about the stimulus, so that when you do get back to it, the stimulus has regained some of its effectiveness, right? Now, this generally doesn't need to happen any more often than something like 3 months. 3 months is generally a good guideline, but it's also very specific to you. And so if you are not making progress in the gym, or like you get sick, like in my case, I wasn't sleeping enough, I was run down, I was super stressed about a bunch of stuff, and then I got sick, and it hit me way worse than it hit anyone else in my family, which is a pretty good sign that I wasn't taking care of myself as much as I needed to. And so it could have been that I hadn't taken enough of a break and too long from exercise as well. I mean, all your stress goes in the same bucket, right? That's a very important concept to keep in mind. So this is a resensitization period. It allows my body to sort of get reset to the stimulus. And so even a very minor stimulus should have a pretty effective anabolic effect. So it can be a very good thing. Even getting sick can be a very good thing when it comes to your exercise and your gains and your results and stuff like that. Okay, and so as I'm going back into this, I'm going to take it as slow as I can, because what it's going to allow me to do is really get the most that I possibly can out of the easy progress at the beginning of a resensitized a period here. So as I said, I'm going to do 3 exercises a day, 1 set each. Okay, and that will be enough to trigger, to make some progress. And then the next time I might add, 1 more exercise to the rotation, 1 more, maybe 2 more, right? A couple days down the line, and I'll just take it real slow, because that's the way to get the most out of the least input, the most output out of the least input. That's the highest leverage approach that you can adopt in a situation like this. So I encourage you all to give that a try if you've had some time off. And if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments, and I'll be happy to provide any guidance that I'm capable of. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Take it easy.